curiosity is part of the secret sauce of learning, and it's part of the secret sauce of innovation. Today, everyone's moving fast and furiously, pivoting, changing, no matter what your industry. Well, that means you have to be a quick learner. And it also means you have to pivot. You have to know how to pivot in your head and in your actions. Well, one of the capabilities that helps you do that is...
Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I have a wonderful guest joining us, and we're going to talk about all things leadership today. So buckle in, get ready, and we're going to take you on a ride because I do have an expert here with me. So Dr. Carol, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
It is a pleasure. I've been so looking forward, and I've been listening to you, and you're fabulous. So let's go.
Let's go. Let's do this. And thank you. Well, I think, I'm the one who's honored to have you here today. This lady has so many accomplishments. Let me just tell you. So Dr. Carol Geffner, she is a PhD and president of the Geffner Group, LLC. This is a global management consulting firm and executive coaching. There are so many accolades she has, but I'm not going to go into every single one. But what I do want to share is that she is a distinguished authority in the field of leadership, which happens to be one of my favorite topics. She works with CEOs and executive teams to shape strategies and practices that actually define successful leadership in organizations globally. And that's a huge undertaking just right there. She has a new book called Building a New Leadership Ladder, Transforming Those Male-Dominated Organizations to Support Women on the Rise. This was published by MIT and is a 2024 Axiom Business Book Award winner. She has all kinds of accolades, as I mentioned, but she also is on the advisory board at Claremont Graduate University, which is Peter Drucker School of Management, and the Leadership Development Advisory Council at the Los Angeles Police Department. So, Dr. Geffner, Dr. Carol, you have your hands into all kinds of things. And I really would love today to start with, what led you down this journey? How did you get here and why? Most importantly, why?
Well, as you know, Vicki, the stories are always long and windy. Nothing is linear in life. And I, in all honesty, if I look back to my 20s or even my 30s, if someone had said my career would unfold as it has, I would have said, no. So it's a matter of opportunity and taking advantage of cool things that come in front, and that's what's happened. I think one way I can explain the journey is, and then the why, is I have vivid memories, very vivid memories of something, that started, 20 years ago. And I was at that point an executive in a very large publishing and media company. And who knew I was going to even be there? I started in the field of consulting. Anyhow, I remember going to my first board meeting, and I went down this long corridor and literally opened the door to the boardroom, which I had seen before. Now, the picture of this boardroom it's massive, as many boardrooms are. The table could easily seat 30 or 40 people. And I open the door and I look around, and what do I see? And I'm sure there are many listeners who can relate to this. I see all men of all ages. And I am the only female. I'm the first female in 80 years at the top of the house in this organization. And I don't come from their industry. So needless to say, when I think of my journey, this was a major transformational experience over several years, because there I was with very, very high expectations. I had a very, very powerful role at the time, and I was it. So that tough experience, and I will say I spent many days smiling and I spent many days crying in
Mm.
the office by myself. That experience really transformed how I saw myself and what I thought I was capable of. Someone believed in me, I stretched into it. So now, fast forward, since that time, I've taken advantage of other C suite roles. I've been CEO, COO, I've run businesses, I've been in consulting. And then in 2016, we all have inflection points, right?
Mhm.
And in 2016, I thought, I've been doing some of the same work for a long time. I had an opportunity come my way from University of Southern California to be a full-time professor. I had consciously made decisions along the way since my PhD not to go into academia full-time. And there I was at a very different stage of life, and I made a decision, thought about it long and hard, took that pivot, jumped into a brand new world again, full-time academia, and stayed there. I went there to run a program, a incredible executive program on leadership. And I spent years there until I said, okay, well, what's the next? What's the
Love it.
next? And the next is what I'm doing now, and I'm working globally, and still remain very involved with the university and teaching and so on. And so I hope that begins to answer your question. And you asked me why.
Mm.
Sometimes our why doesn't show itself immediately, right? So I'm
Very
sure
true.
you have listeners who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and they're like, I still don't know my why. Well, I figured out my why along the way, and I've always been driven to help improve the quality of life for people. It took me a long time to realize that my greater why is that I do that through the workplace. I always ask myself, why am I focused on the workplace? So as it turns out, my why is because I really want to help people lead better lives through their experiences at the workplace, because that's where we spend most of our time.
Love that. Love that. That's a great why and a big why, right? That to me, that is because we spend so much time working and the people that we're around, like we impact their lives on a daily basis. And so if we can make that better in some way, how phenomenal is that? Yeah. So you said a few things in your, when you were sharing your journey. First of all, I could resonate with being the only woman in the boardroom, been there. And my team used to say to me, "Oh, we'd love to be a fly on the wall," because you'd be sitting in these rooms, all men, different ages, stages for themselves. And, we're these young women that, have walked into these situations. But what you said that really resonated with me is that someone believed in you
Yes.
and someone pushed you to stretch at that time in your life. And we all need someone to believe in us, right? And so, it's if you don't have that, how do you find that, Dr. Carol? Like that's
Great
such a
question.
oof.
No, that's a great question. And let me start off by clarifying something for your listeners. There is a difference between a mentor and a champion.
Yeah.
So, and what you've just pointed to is so important because we all need both.
Yeah.
A mentor is someone who has been in the seat or is in the seat and can help you. It's usually someone, but doesn't have to be someone in your organization, but it's someone who can give you kind of tactical, professional, outside advice. You can ask anything, and this person has walked in similar shoes. A champion is someone who sees you and sees something in you and offers you a stretch opportunity. And as I've learned through my own experience and the women whom I interviewed across the globe, successful people in general, not just women, take advantage. They leap, right?
Yeah.
So when someone says, how'd you like to do this? You might feel, oh, I'm not ready. And women do that all the time, as you know, Vicki. But
Mm-hmm.
you lose because someone is stretching you. Doesn't matter if you're going to end up in that job forever. So I had Sam. Sam was my champion, and I was coaching Sam, who was a president of a major division of a company for years, and then he became the CEO of that company. And a few months later, started talking to me about, well, would I like to leave where I am, go to this publishing media company? Anyhow, long story short, I eventually, after months of talking, said sure. And he made a job, and I didn't know what I was doing. I remember getting in the job thinking, okay, well, now what?
Yep.
And there you go. The story goes from there.
I
So
love that. Oh,
how do you find how do you find mentors and
mm,
champions? A mentor can be anyone. Think about people you know. Think about people you have met either in your current organization or maybe in a committee you're working with somewhere. Maybe someone in your community who has walked in a similar path, and you would really like to learn from them, right? So you can have several mentors. Just ask them. Most people are honored
yeah.
to be a mentor. Now, a
Yeah.
champion is different. Champion is usually someone you have worked for, or you're working for, or maybe a couple of levels above, and you have a relationship. They know who you are, and maybe they've been watching you, but you haven't had interactions. At some point, open a conversation. Just say, you know what? I really want to grow. I really want to stretch over the next years. And I'm wondering if you might be willing to help me think about opportunities, think about how do I do that?
Mm.
So it's not about the now necessarily. It's about how do I do this over time? And that can be a champion. You ask.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Takes me back in time when the company I was working for, we had decided to shut the company down in Canada, and one of the people that I worked closely with, he was a third party supporter of our company. He came to me, and very similar to what you're saying, he came to me and he said, "Vicki, there's an opportunity I think that you should put your hand up for." And at first I was 31 years old, right? And it was a big job. And it was to be the president of a company running it, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready for that, John." And he was like, "Oh, you're absolutely ready." And he goes, "What do you have to lose?" He goes, "I've worked with you for the last 2 years." He goes, "I know what you're capable of. Put your resume in." And I was scared to death, Dr. Carol, because I thought, can I do this? I knew deep down, yes, I could, but it was all of those fears, which, audience, by the way, that is so normal to have that fear of failure, rejection, all those things, but it's what you do with that. Do you let it fuel you, or do you let that hold you back? So I decided to let it fuel me, and I went for the opportunity. I landed the job. I spent almost 10 years running this organization in the last year, Canada and US. But it was because of that champion, to your point. And so finding those champions are so, so important. Yes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And to your point, Vicki, you don't always know when they're going to show up. It's not
Yes.
like you have to have a champion at every job, but over time, you're going to find that person, or that person's going to find you.
Yeah,
So that's a great
exactly.
story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I love also what you talked about with just saying yes, right? And I see a lot of, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I see a lot of young people today who are hesitant to utilize their network to help them open a door, right? There's this resistance to it. And I say this to even my children. I'll say, just because a door gets opened doesn't mean you get a job. It
That's
means
right.
you have to work to get the job. And so, saying yes to those opportunities that you were talking about, like, even if you don't know everything, that's okay. Somebody sees it in you to do it. So you've got to put yourself out there and know that you will figure it out along the way.
Absolutely. And to your earlier point about younger people, and I hate to generalize, but in the spirit of conversation, I'm
Mm,
going to make a generalization. I hear all the time from my, let's say, more mature or older clients that, they struggle with some of the younger people coming in. So, and I'm sorry to the listeners who are younger, I'm not dissing you. I'm just saying, there are stereotypes and
yes, there are.
experiences about they don't want to learn except if it directly relates to their job. They don't want to put in extra hours, et cetera, et cetera. So just to offer a little advice, and Vicki, it piggybacks on what you were saying,
Mm,
don't just think of today, right? You're in a job right now. You don't know how long you're going to be there. Could be
that's
a
right.
year, could be 10 years, who knows? But don't just think of today because you're a growing, living organism. So you're going to be working for a long time. You have a runway ahead of you. And so if you can learn something or many things from every job, right? Learn what you can because someday you're going to be older and you're going to be in front of people and you're going to say, when I was younger,
Mm,
here are some of my experiences. And so it is through that kind of, it's like a layer cake. Each year, each month, each decade layers upon another. And someday there you are, and you're the wise one, or you're
mm.
the one who has a broader point of view in the room because you have experimented and you've learned from so many different people and places.
Yeah, love that. I think that's such an important leadership lesson to be open to the learning and knowing that it's never too late. Like you were talking about when you were sharing a bit of your journey about, well, in this stage, and people have this misconception, I think, that, oh, once you hit 60, 62, oh, I have to retire, I'm done. And it's like, oh my gosh, no way. Like I went back to school at 58, right? And it's like, yes, like what is next? And there's so many opportunities and so much life to live. I'm getting sidetracked a little bit, so sorry about that, Dr. Kara.
No, it's all good. Keep going. It's whatever, wherever you go, I'll follow.
Well, I just think that those are lessons that we have these programs in our mind that, okay, you do this, you learn that, and then you're done, and then you go practice, and you either change jobs every few years or you stay in jobs for a long time, and all of it, to your point, is part of your masterpiece that you're designing, and you get to decide how you want to design that story. And so it may be here for 3 years or a year, but then what's next for you, right? The important thing is, are you engaged with it? Do you feel like you're stretching? So I love that. So, what does it take, in your view, to not only just climb the ladder of success, but to really build that vision that reflects on the innovation and strengths that are required for today's women leaders?
Yes, yes, yes. So let's set the table a little bit for the listeners. Yes, we have made progress over a
Mm,
long period of time, right? If we look back to the 50s, 60s, yes, we have made progress. However, the progress is slim. So if we look at today, and I'm not going to take you down the road of statistics, but if you look at the facts are not telling a story um, of equity for women as they move
mm,
into senior roles. So let's just say, if you look at lots and lots of studies, the research evidence is there. It is still not, women are still struggling in a major way in many industries with making it through to the most senior level. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. So now, if we add on to that the fact that, as everybody knows, we are living through a time of radical change, right? So we're almost getting tired of hearing about radical change. Change is constant. There are what we call polycrises, one crisis after another after another. Everybody's lived through COVID, so that's just one of many, right? So globally and nationally, many, many changes, lots of uncertainty. I work with clients right now, all in multiple industries. They are all saying the same thing, which is, oh, when are we going to go back to homeostasis? Well, you're not.
mm,
So, so now if you say, well, what are the capabilities that women most need in leading and living through the future of work today and looking forward? And I would say, while some of the research would show that this is the same for men and women, we're going to focus on women right now, right? So the first thing I would say, and this is not in any order because there's a long list, I'm just going to bring out three. The first one is curiosity. So curiosity is part of the secret sauce of learning, and it's part of the secret sauce of innovation, right? So today, everyone's moving fast and furiously, pivoting, changing, no matter what your industry. Well, that means you have to be a quick learner. And it also means you have to pivot. You have to know how to pivot in your head and in your actions. Well, one of the capabilities that helps you do that is curiosity. So if I'm in a meeting, let's make it real. I'm in a meeting. Someone says something and I don't like it, or it triggers me. In that moment, I have an instantaneous choice. I can get defensive. I can challenge the person. I can confront the person. Or I could say something like, tell me more about that. Tell me more about your thinking. So let's make this very real. That's curiosity in action. Or I'm a manager and I have an employee and the employee's doing something that's wrong or, I don't like, or the organization doesn't like. I get to sit with that person and have a conversation and say, look, you're doing this and this and this, and it's not acceptable and you can't keep doing it. Something to that effect, a little better than that. Or I can say, here's why we're meeting. Could you please tell me what's going on with whatever the situation is? Can you explain to me what's happening? Because I'm getting some feedback that's indicating the following, but I want to hear from you. That's curiosity in action, but you have to mean it, right? This is real. So curiosity is one capability that takes you a long way, both in building relationships and keeping relationships and leading. Another is strategic thinking. So this is one of the hallmark differences between people who move into senior executive roles and are successful and effective, and people who, let's say, stay at more junior roles in an organization. As you move up in an organization, you really, really need to be able to lift up out of your day-to-day, hard to do when you're slammed, but you need to be able to lift up and think broadly and think, well, how does what's happening in my area, how's that being impacted by all these other things happening in other areas? How am I impacting other areas that I don't even mean to impact? And even many times you have to think beyond your own organization, right? So to your communities, your constituencies, your clients, your vendors, whatever it is. So strategic thinking, if you're a woman and you want to excel, not during times of change and even during times of lesser change, but you want to excel, begin to hone your skills, both not just through reading information, but, work with your boss, work with other people in the organization, asking them, let's take this issue and think about it more broadly. How would you look at it? Right? So you can use people around you 100%. As an opportunity to learn. So I'm going to stop. I mean, I said three.
You can go with one more. Go with one more.
Okay. So another one is collaboration and coalition building. Vicki, there's an old saying. If you want to go fast, go it alone. If you want to go far, you have to go with others. I might not have said that perfectly. In today's world, we are a networked world. Everybody knows that. We're more and more and more networked. So in order to be successful, and women generally, let me underscore that. I am stereotyping, but generally women are better at building interpersonal relationships and connecting in relationships. So use that strength in applying it in your workplace, building teams, collaborating across departments, collaborating across divisions, across the globe, whatever it is, building coalitions where people come together, look at complex issues, challenges together, and you build support, you get to hear different points of view, you get to learn from one another. This is critical in today's workplace and in the future. We just don't do anything. Well, there are a few things, but very few things. We don't do much of anything alone anymore.
Yeah.
So if you are not good at building collaborative relationships and working out of your silo, you are going to find yourself marginalized at some point.
Yeah.
That's just what happens. You're going to
Yeah.
find yourself with less opportunity at some point.
Well, I certainly agree with you. And there is this, I don't want to use the word resistance, but there is some resistance to that because people have been rewarded for so long about being excellent solo contributors. And now all of a sudden, organizations, and I'm saying that broadly, organizations are looking at, no, I need you to be not a solo contributor, but a team contributor. And that relational aspect becomes super important to what you're saying, because if you're not able to relate, then that's when the egos get in the way, and it's people taking credit for other people's work, all of those things that happen that scare people in doing so. But totally agree with you and see this happen a lot, right? That lens of curiosity is not there because people are just waiting to be told what to do versus asking, oh, well, why would we do that? Or why wouldn't we do that? Right?
Yes.
Like, really important. And strategic thinking, honestly, Dr. Carol, it's almost like we just need to have programs or courses that are designed for teaching strategic thinking, because to your point, that plays into so many aspects of our lives. And women, even if you're thinking your finance, your personal wealth, being strategic about how you do that is a skill.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct. It's not just looking at I'm going to sound really old now. I was going to say, it's not just looking at your checkbook. And younger people would say, what's a checkbook?
I know.
So, yeah, it's not just looking down, it's looking up. And there are courses, by the way, for the listeners' sake, there are courses on strategic thinking. As a matter of fact, when I was at University of Southern California, we had that, we taught it, but there are courses all over the place. All you got to do is Google, right?
Yeah,
and maybe even free courses, that you can access, but it's critical. It's real.
Yeah.
And by the way, for the listeners, the more you hold on to your own information or your own, our department does it this way or whatever, the more you hold on, at some point, may not be today, but at some point, you're going to get a reputation. And part of that reputation is going to be that person is territorial.
Yeah.
That person just wants, to hold on to her people or her knowledge or her resources. And that will work against you if you're working with other people.
Yeah, 100%. And hurts your credibility, right? Which I know that's a topic that you talk about a lot is, what happens if that credibility is challenged? Like, how do you recover from that? And how do you navigate it when you have now this reputation of being the naysayer or the person who tries to keep things in isolation?
Yes. So Vicki, this is a really important question. It doesn't get enough attention, so I want to thank you for asking it. It's very important. I wish I could tell you that I don't know too many women whose credibility has been at times questioned, but unfortunately I know a lot. And in male-dominated positions, or in male dominated industries or organizations, this happens regularly. So let me just give an example and then I'll come back. I do a lot of work with law enforcement as an example. Well, law enforcement, even though there are lots of women in law enforcement around the country, there aren't a lot of senior executive women in law enforcement. It is still a male oriented profession. And so there are many women who are marginalized. There are microaggressions, etc. And I'm not dissing all law enforcement. What I'm saying is the reality is I know a lot of women. I've interviewed them. They're friends, they're colleagues, who have had really difficult times with their credibility in that industry. And tech is another one. Sorry, tech is still male or dominated, as we know. And the sciences. I mean, the list goes on. So here's my advice. Guaranteed, you will have times in your career where your credibility will be questioned for whatever reason. The first piece of advice I can give you is if that happens in a public forum in any way, a meeting or other people around, whatever the case may be, and even if it happens one-on-one, stay focused on the issue at hand. So if someone's questioning your judgment about a problem, a challenge, an issue, instead of responding in a personal way, being defensive or getting upset or being anxious, stay focused on the issue. Okay, so we're talking right now, we're in a meeting and we're talking about how we're going to solve X, security, how we're going to solve security in our organization, or how we're going to beef up our IT system. I don't care what it is. Go right back to whatever is on the table. Have the conversation about that. That's a business matter. I don't care what it is. Get yourself out of the line of fire. Yeah. Related to this is work on taking issues less personally. And by the way, I'm going to be vulnerable here. I work on this to this day.
Me too.
I am an empath. I tend to take a lot personally, way too much personally. However, what I've learned over the years, when you're in a workplace, you can go complain to your girlfriends or your spouse or your partner later, not to an employee, not to a peer. Ever. You can complain, cry, whine, stomp, do whatever you want later. But in the moment, you need to learn to shed that in the moment and not let it go in your skin, right? So imagine you have a little bit of cover, a little bit of skin there, and it's going to bounce it off because the extent to which you take it personally, that will then lead you to show on your face, your body, personal emotions, your face will change, you could get uptight, whatever it is. So learn to depersonalize, and that takes practice. And go deal with the issue in private, right? So if somebody continues, or if a group of people, I was on a call with a very senior person last night, about this very issue in his organization, where a female's credibility is being, and has been for years, challenged openly. Those conversations need to be had personally, in private. And in those instances, you want to plan what you're going to say. Yeah. So it's not like you just walk in and explode, but you plan, how are you going to have this conversation so it's productive, right? So these are really important. I have seen so many women derailed because they are working in highly male-dominated situations, and they respond in the moment, and that never goes away. The memory of that never goes away, and it comes back at them later, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So these are critical skills to practice. And again, I will tell you, I've been in many of them myself. Yeah. So I have learned the hard way. Yeah. Yes.
Likewise.
I learned the hard way. Yes.
Well, and Dr. Carol, like what you were talking about earlier, like, and this is part of like the promptness or the what's the word I'm looking for? The book that you have written, like really
Yes.
helping people understand how to navigate, how women to rise. And when you talked about that curiosity, strategic thinking, and that, collaboration, those relational relationships, if you can remember that
Yes.
during those times when credibility, because that's when curiosity is at its best, right? So
Correct.
what makes you feel that way? Or, why have we taken it down this path? Like getting curious as to why they're challenging your credibility, right? And always remembering the relationship aspect of it. So I love how you shared that. And it's knowing that it's like a chess game, right? So that strategic
Correct.
thinking is
Yes.
okay, move, counter move. And you have a choice as to how you counter move.
Correct. And Vicki, let me piggyback on that. That's really important. I get called in just like you do a lot to coach executives, right?
Mhm.
And have been doing this for many, many years. Most of the time, not 100%, but if I'm going to give a number, 90%. Most of the time, I'm called in to coach really objectively successful men and women, right? Men and women. So I don't care whether they're CEOs or senior vice president. Pick your title. Almost all the time, there are problems that have accrued over time where this individual tends to not choose in the moment, how do I want to respond? But they get an email that's triggering and they respond in the moment and it's not so good. Or they respond in meetings, or they're talking to their boss and they just go off, or whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. So what you just said is critical. We all have the pause. We all have a pause button. And you know what? You can buy one on Amazon and put it on your desk, take it with you to meetings, because a pause could be 3 seconds.
So powerful.
You don't need minutes. And in that pause, you get to take a couple of slow, deep breaths to bring your physiology down. And in that pause, you get to make a choice. How do I want to respond? And companies pay Vicki you and they pay me good money to come in and teach people how not to be reactive, how not to be impulsive, how to be more thoughtful and show up more as a leader. And so there you go. I think this is one of the most basic tools we already have that we forget about.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
things get tough. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Super powerful. And to your point, often can be hard to execute on.
Yes,
And
correct.
it is muscle building. It's catching yourself before you explode, before you say something that ruins your credibility, and then you're backtracking, right? So, to your point, take that 30-second, 3-second, 2-second pause just to level set. Wow, Dr. Carol, like, let me just say, audience, again, Dr. Carol Geffner, amazing, amazing expert on leadership. Um, I don't want to wrap up our call because I love this. This is too invigorating for me. So I love it.
Could I offer one more point? I mean,
Yes, please.
you and I could be doing this for hours,
I
but
know.
we have to wrap it up. But I'd like to make one last point. It is very much evident in my research, but it's also about the way I think and what I've learned. Okay, we have had many voices in the past and still do. Um, Talking to women about using your voice, right? Just go up to, get to the table and use your voice and so on and so forth. I would like to say, yes, it's important to learn to use your voice so that others can hopefully, you can't guarantee it, hear you. But there's something else. There are a lot of broken systems in organizations, right?
Yes.
We know this. We know that lots of times we're working with cultures that are toxic or unhealthy, or we're working with policies or procedures that are years, decades old, whatever it is. Most of us are not working in well put together, current, modern, adaptable systems, particularly if the organizations are medium to large size. So my advice to everybody listening is whatever position you find yourself in where you can influence the culture day by day or strategically, please focus also on changing the system, changing policies, changing procedures, suggesting that feed into building a healthy culture in micro ways, day by day by day, because your voice can only be heard in an environment that is conducive to hearing different voices. So if you're only focused on you and how do I show up better, you are missing half the equation. It's also what can I do to improve this workplace?
Yeah.
And that's the way ultimately progress is made for all of us.
Yeah. I am so glad you highlighted that, because that is so true. And we could have a whole conversation about systems in many different industries, but at the core, they are very similar. So that might mean we have to have another conversation. Okay, awesome.
You are fabulous.
Oh, so are you. And I love this. Like, I'm thinking, maybe you and I need to join forces, go out and we'll change the world. I'm telling you. So, Dr. Carol, where can people find you? Because I know they're going to listen to this podcast and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, why didn't she ask this? Or why didn't she ask that? And there are so many more questions I have too. So where can they find you if they want to ask more questions?
Absolutely. I'll keep this easy. You can go to my website, first of all. So that is www.geffnergroup.com. And that's GEFF, like Frank, NER, Geffnergroup.com. I'm on LinkedIn, right? Carol Geffner. There's also a site for Geffner Group. So there's two. I'm on Instagram, although I have to admit, I'm not on Instagram every single day.
Likewise.
And let's see, you can Google me. There's lots of ways of getting to me, but easy way is geffnergroup.com or LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn. And I would love to hear from you. And congratulations to all of you and Vicki, you who are working hard and you're practicing and learning all the time. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, it's such a pleasure having you here. And thank you. I'm grateful to you for sharing your expertise and your journey of, how you've come to where you are today. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I want to thank our audience. I know you have a choice what podcast you're listening to. So thank you. Please do take a moment, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the podcast so that you get notified as soon as we drop a new podcast. We have such amazing guests joining us. And, these women, and we have a few men that come on as well, they are sharing things with you to make life easier, better, shift your perspective. It goes back to what Dr. Carol was just saying about the learning. So do subscribe, hit the button, subscribe, whatever platform you listen to. And if you want to expand on that, visit us at Women in Leadership Empowered and subscribe to our monthly newsletter. We only send it out once a month, but it gives you insight as to who are the guests that have been with us for that month. And it gives you insight into leadership. So please do join us on the WIL Empowered website. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you on the next Women in Leadership podcast. Take care. Thank you, Dr. Carol. You stay with me for a second.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.